Hello everyone, welcome to Major's Garage. My name is Suellio Almeida and I'm the crew chief for the Formula 3, Formula 3.5 and the new Mercedes Formula 1. And this is going to be the first week of the season and we're going to see one of my laps here. I did an entire stint on hards, I did a stint on softs and a stint on mediums. We're going to watch one of my laps on the hard stint. We're going to talk about strategy at the end of the video. Let's see the entire lap first, and then from there we will see. Alright, so now let's talk about corner by corner. So going back to the same lap time, the same lap 27. So as a reference here, I'm using the beginning of the curve here, this very beginning. Of course, this first part here is just easy, flat out, nothing to deal about, nothing to worry about. I just want to really stick to this curve here so we don't go too much to the right and we already have time to easily prepare. But it's not a big deal, we can easily prepare the braking zone here. It's just very important that we have the car really close to this white line here. I probably would say I could use a little bit more of that. As you can see, by the time I'm starting to turn in, I am actually touching the white line. Initial application pretty hard. I would say you can kind of brake even harder than that without necessarily locking. You can create some micro locking. But thinking about an entire stint where I did basically the race distance on one set of tires, it felt like this was ideal and this was very good. So I'm braking around, let's say 80%, 75 to 80%. And then as the speed goes down, as any Formula car, you have to bleed off the brakes very slowly, even when on a straight line. And then as you start turning, really a lot less brakes as you're trailing into the apex. Here, as you can see, I missed the apex by a tiny bit. If you look on the outside, here we are losing the apex a little bit. Ideally, we want to touch the sausage without actually going over it. So just a slight touch would be perfect. And then here, careful on the power as always, because this car has so much power. So as you can see, as I get back on power, I'm going to 40% throttle. That's already enough to make the car really like a grip, bite the rear. And then you keep going on like very careful throttle, modulating the throttle all the way and being very careful. You don't want to bring the car too much to the right here. You want to bring it, this is kind of enough, let's say 4/5 or 3/4 to the right. And then from there you can already start doing a little bit of braking, not too hard. Here, as you can see here, I'm braking around 30% brakes, and then I'm already churning and trailing very patiently so you don't lock the front left tire. Then very patiently you want to do the same thing. You want to go aim for slightly touching that sausage without actually using it. Again, I missed it a little bit, but I had a very, very good rotation. And then same thing, when you get back on power, I'm here at this point, and on the second gear. You see, initial throttle. Look at this. This is already enough to make the car rotate. It's like just a tiny bit on second power. There's lots of power on this car. The car is rotating. As it's rotating, you're unwinding the wheel. I'm even correcting it a tiny bit here, as you can see, and going forward and forward and forward with the throttle very, very slightly all the way until we get like on fourth gear. That's where my throttle is like getting to 100%. As you can see, I'm not even still on 100%. I'm 95, just like kind of hesitating and feeling. And then like, no, okay, finally I go to 100. So let's see this again in full throttle, full speed. Look at the throttle. Up, 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 up. Wait, wait, wait. Okay, finally I get there. And then for Brooklands, we have two references here. We have the 50 and we have this other reference here. What I generally like doing is trying to ignore the 50. So try to reach the peak and turn in here on the next one. But because everything is happening so fast, I always end up starting to brake here. You see? I'm starting to brake here, and my peak pressure is a little bit closer, maybe halfway in between the two signs. And then I'm already starting to turn in and trail brake very deeply into the corner. The line now it's a little bit different because the off-track line is different and after this update. So basically the off-track before was having the middle of the car on the dirt here, but now it's having the middle of the car on the green, which is a big difference. And if you cannot use that much anymore, you have to turn in and open up a tiny bit more before turning in more deeply. And here, as you can see, I'm basically on the, well, quite close to the off track. We could say I could use a little bit more without getting on off track, but just make sure that you are aware of this change in the off track limit. Then as soon as we get here in these two red squares, get on throttle, and same thing, you cannot go 100% throttle that easily in this car. Feel what is the percentage that gives you that little bite where the car is starting to gain a little bit of rotation or lose a little bit of grip on the rears. And then as you feel that helping the car rotate, you unwind the wheel, otherwise you're going to spin. And then here I'm preparing for the very long double apex, so I'm turning in a little bit early. What I want to do is I want to have the car as close as possible to this dirt here. As you can see, I'm even touching the dirt there. And then we start, that was the first apex, so we start going wide and wide and wide and wide and wide and wide. And then we go back. As you can see, we have the fourth square, red square here. We can count them. So 1, 2, 3, 4. On the fourth, I'm already touching the apex. Of course, I'm getting back on the throttle earlier than that. I'm getting back on the throttle in between the two apexes. We can really, really treat this corner as a double apex. And then as the car is coming back to the second apex, back on power, again, 50%, 45%, and then feel the car being rotated by the throttle. And as that rotation happens, you unwind the wheel, very light hands, allow the rear to really finish the corner for you. And as you feel the car is gripping and gripping and gaining speed, you can go more and more and more on the throttle. As you can see, again, my throttle application, very, 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 very gradual. I'm getting 100% only on fourth gear, only basically at the end of the corner. Just a very long corner. So this corner, super fun to do on this car. If you're on mediums or softs at the end of the stint, it's gonna be easily flat out. If you're on hards, I would say on the second half of the stint, it's gonna be a little bit easier to do it flat out, but on the beginning you have to lift. As you can see here on my 29.3 that I did, I am lifting very slightly just to have a little bit more weight on the fronts, turning the car. And then as I see that I'm not getting the off track, I go back on power. And again here the off track is updated. So as you can see, middle of the car on the edge of the curb. That's what we want. We don't want more than that, because if it's the middle of the car touches the green, you get an off track, which is shame. But it was so much fun to do that quicker and going wider. But here is the new off track. And then here, same thing. We're gonna have an updated off track limit. So here I used to go and aim for this little dirt here, but as you can see, we can't actually use it that much anymore, because if you put the middle of the car, again, middle of the car touching the green, middle of the car outside of the black and white curb, will give you an off track. You have to be careful with that. And then here, this is easily flat out. I want to turn in pretty quickly. As you can see, my initial turn in is boop, very quickly, because we are already at the speed that the car handles the corner. So we turn, and we want to have the car, as you can see here, at least on this the right half of the corner here. So not on the middle, not to the left. We want to be on the right, because we want to prepare the second corner, which is the left-hander. Very, very, very light trail braking. 7th gear. Bring the car. You want to be very close to the left here before you change direction. As you can see, I'm very much to the left. And then when you change direction, you're going to have a very good line for the last right-hander, which will give you a very, very good exit. And you will be able to carry a lots of speed for the straight. Then here, same thing. We used to be able to touch the grass very slightly. We cannot do that anymore, because it will give you an off track. So, and same thing with this one. Middle of the car, you cannot go over the black and white curb. Then we go to this corner that I never remember the name. We want to do a very light braking, like very, very light, and immediately trail braking very slowly all the way to the apex. So it's not light braking and leaving. We are braking light, but we're maintaining it. As you can see, maintaining. Okay, now I'm lifting up very, 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 very slowly until we get back on power. So you can see I do not coast on this car. We are trail braking all the way until where I get back on power. Stowe, thank you so much, chat. So go 6th gear, back on power, aggressively, feel the car rotating with the rotation. That was amazing. Rotating with the throttle. And then here, it feels like you can use a little bit more. I don't know, like, it looks like the track limit sensor here is not very strict in terms of putting the center of the car on the green. I am actually with the center of the car touching the green at this point, as you can see, very, very slightly, but I am. And I did not get on off track in this lap, so that was fine. Then here, what I do use is the beginning of the curb, this white long part of the curb, as a braking reference. Again, not braking too hard. There's a bump here when you start braking, so if you brake too hard, you may lock the tires. So I brake, same thing, brakes going down very, very slowly as you lose speed and downforce. Then as soon as we turn in, we want to decrease the brakes way quicker, but still have a little bit of brakes. You can see I'm almost not coasting. I mean, basically not coasting. I'm coasting for like half a tenth of a second here. Then same thing, we want to really almost touch this little thing here that I missed again. It's the aiming to touch that makes you quick. If you're trying to use the apex, but you're very slightly understeering and you're very slightly losing the apex, that's still fine. The problem is, for example, you lose a lot of time if you turn in too early. You realize that you're gonna hit the curb and you have to unwind. That behavior makes you lose a lot more time than actually understeering and trying your best to rotate the car and slightly missing. This is what I call try to hit it and fail. If you try to hit the curb and you fail, that means you're trying to rotate the car as much as you can, and that means you are using as much grip as possible on the car. So back on the power, really be careful not to go back on the power too early and go wide to the right here. As you can see, my car is on the middle of the track. Let's say this is the very limit. You don't want to be more to the right than that. A little bit to the left is acceptable, a little bit to the right it's not, because it will really, really hurt your exit. So change direction, get on power, and feel the very, very slow application of throttle as you regain the grip and the speed and the downforce. And here we go. This is a lap with the hard tires, no DRS, and balanced deploy mode. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now I want to do some quick comments about the deployment, about the differential, and about the strategy. So about the strategy, we have three options. We have full stint on hards, a little bit tricky. I did that, saving tires, not saving tires, but on a very consistent and gentle stint. I ended up with 31%. So if you're having dirty air and if you're abusing the fronts, this may give you a black flag at the end of the race because you have 0% tires left. So be careful with that. If you can save the hards and you can do an entire stint with them, 29 laps, then go for it. You have to test it before on practice. Do an entire stint on hards and see if you can handle it. If your car can handle it. So that's the first option. I'm not really sure about this first option because I'm not really sure if we have to go to the pits. So this is something that I will have to read and see. We didn't have that information in the schedule. So on the next week, for sure, I'm going to talk about it, knowing exactly what the rules are. But I know, doing a full stint, that the car is able to do 29 laps on hards. The second, if we have to stop on the pits, is doing mediums, which is the safest because the mediums actually handle a lot more than half of the stint. So I was able to do around 3/4 of the stint before I really had some scary moments on the medium tires. And I would say if you do mediums and you stop halfway on the race and do another set of mediums, you're gonna be fine. And that's really good. I would say this is the safest, especially knowing that on the race you're gonna fight, you're gonna have dirty air, you're gonna force, you're gonna do mistakes, do lockups and everything. The double medium stint will be the safest one. The third option would be starting with softs and changing for mediums around 2/3 on the race, or starting with mediums and changing to softs at the end. Which I don't know. I would say if you're starting very well and you want to really disappear ahead, then I would start with soft and mediums. If you want to be very safe on the beginning and then you want to attack towards the end, I would go medium and softs. I don't think you can do mediums on one stint. So if you want to do a single stint, it has to be hards. So recap. One option. Full stint on hards. I don't know if we can do that because I don't know if we are forced to do a pit stop or not. There's no refueling on this car. The second option, medium. The third option, medium and softs. So that is good. Now let's talk about differential. So let me do something real quick here. I'm going to load another setup here. I'm going to load the baseline setup for Silverstone. And let's show it here. So we have these options for medium. We have for differential, sorry. We have entry, we have middle, and we have high speed. Let's explain a little bit what these are. The entry is when you're braking. So if you're braking, the differential is gonna make the tires locked to each other. So if the differential is on, let's say, 12, that means the car is gonna resist the rotation because the two tires are locked together, and when you're turning the car into a corner, the wheels tend to rotate on a different speed because the outside wheel is going through a longer distance and the inside wheel is stopped. So this being at 12, it resists that behavior and the car turns less. The car wants to go ahead, wants to go straight. If you bring this all the way down to 1, that means the car does not resist to that rotation and the car is allowed to rotate a lot more, which means the car is a lot more freer to turn into the corner. Now this is entry differential. You can change that from corner to corner whenever you want. You can set that on your wheel and change it during the race. even during the quali if you want. If you guys see the real life Formula 1 stuff, you will see them changing, and the little dash showing that they are changing differential, entry, middle, high speed. They're changing everything during the lap, during the race, during the quality, during everything. They are amazing. Now, let's talk about middle. Middle is as soon as you are on a lower speed and you accelerate. Middle means that the resistance that you're gonna set at the moment you accelerate out of a low speed corner. Let's say a hairpin. A hairpin, you are at the apex. As soon as you accelerate, boom, the middle will kick in. So if it's set at 1, actually, I want to show you guys that. If it's set at 1, look at what happens. I'm gonna go to the track. I'm actually driving with my socks right now. I want to show you guys what happens if we have the differential, the middle differential on 1. Okay, did you guys see what happened? I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna show you the replay, and we will see what happened. I'm gonna use the chase cam. Look, differential mid is on 1, which means the 2 wheels can rotate independently. And on exit, what happens is that when you deliver the power, the inside and the outside can rotate different. Which means if the inside is lighter because we're going out of the corner and the weight is on the outside, the inside with less resistance will actually receive all that power from the engine, and it will rotate freely. So look at the trail now. Look at the skid mark on the inside. Look at that. Look at how bad this is. Because all the power is going to my right tire. There's even smoke going out of it. You see? And we can even see too how look at the marks on the tire, because we're destroying the tires here, and look at how shiny the left tire is. So that is what happens when you have differential on 1, middle 1. It's exit of low speed corners. Now, the differential on high speed differential is basically the same thing on exit, on power, but on higher speed corners. So let's say cops or stow. When you're like 6th gear, we're really accelerating very hard, then that is going to determine how connected the wheels are. If you have this value too low, the car is going to understeer on the outside and may have the same bad effect of spinning the inside wheel, which destroys your tire and causes the car to understeer, and you even lose time because you don't have the power pushing the car forward. If you have it on 12, then the car tends to rotate a lot more because a lot of the power is locked to both wheels on the rear, and then the outside, who is already busy holding the car in terms of rotation, will also have to worry with the traction pushing the car forward. So that's why on 12 the car turns more, because the outside tire is gonna also receive that power from the engine. I don't know if it clears for you guys, but that's the thing. My setup, I have it set to pretty high differential on middle and high speed, and it's on medium. It's on the minimum for entry. But towards the end of the stint, it feels like it's good to bring this down a little bit, because every time you have a little scary moment on exit, you can bring down this value and make the car a little bit more understeery on exit, or less oversteery, less dangerous on exit. So entry is entry, middle and high speed is for exit. This is about differential. I hope it's fine. I hope it's clear. It's clear enough for you guys. We're also going to talk about engine braking. So engine braking, it's basically how much the rear wants to slow down as you downshift. So if this value is on maximum, as it is, let's say 12, then as you downshift, you're not going to feel that effect of the car wanting to rotate more, or wanting to stop, or wanting to even lock the rears, if you have this on 12, because this value is not the value of the engine braking, it's the value of the engine braking control. So it's a value, it's something electronic that counteracts the effect of the engine braking. So 12 means no engine braking, and 1 means lots of engine braking. My setup, I like the engine braking to make the car rotate. If I find it to be better to set at 12 and still compensate by making the car rotate in another way, that will be updated in the next week for you guys. But I really tested it, and I really loved the 1 because I like the engine braking controlling the rotation, especially because we are all so used to having engine braking in most cars. And that's it. I think that's it for today. This is a very long tutorial. I'm gonna post this on YouTube. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any question, you can send me a message on my Discord, on my Twitch, or on here on the comments. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.